I overheard my wife boasting about cheating, so I exposed her in front of her friends. Hey Reddit, throwaway account for obvious reasons. I, 33M, honestly can't believe I'm typing this. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you my marriage to Sarah, 31F, was rock solid, boring in the best possible way. We met in college, got married 6 years ago, and I thought we had the kind of relationship people envied. We both work from home mostly, split chores, have our dumb inside jokes, and are that couple who still holds hands at restaurants. Or at least, we used to be. But something's changed these past few months. Sarah's been distracted. She started going out more with her friends, always coming home a little tipsy and way too giddy for midnight. She's glued to her phone lately, always turning the screen away when I walk by. I chalked it up to stress, to needing space. I told myself I trusted her. I wanted to trust her. But little things kept stacking up. Late-night texts, laughter behind closed doors, conversations that stopped the second I entered the room. Last Saturday, things tipped. We hosted a girls' night at our place for Sarah and her 3 best friends, Rachel, Maya, and Jenna. I was supposed to stay out of sight, man cave night, but life had other plans. So, like I said, I was banished to the back room for man cave night, but halfway through, I realized I'd left my phone charger in the living room. I figured I'd just sneak in, grab it, and slip back out without disturbing their wine-fueled gossip. But as I reached the hallway, I heard my name followed by a round of stifled laughter. I know I shouldn't have listened. I know. But I froze. The tone in Sarah's voice wasn't loving, it was smug, almost giddy. I heard her say, "He has no clue." None. I could literally tell him I'm going out for book club, and he'd just nod and ask if I want a snack packed. The others burst out laughing. Rachel chimed in, "So, are you ever going to tell him?" And Sarah, my wife, my partner, answered, "Honestly, why would I? This is the most alive I've felt in years. If he knew, everything would fall apart." My stomach twisted. My face felt hot, like I'd been slapped. I pressed my back to the wall, heart hammering in my chest. "What about the guy?" Maya asked. "Does he know you're married?" Sarah just giggled. "He doesn't care. It's all just fun. No strings." I wanted to walk in, to scream, to demand answers, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, hearing my wife talk about me like I was some clueless idiot. After that, I didn't even get my charger. I just stood there, feeling like the floor might drop out from under me at any second. I waited until the laughter moved to the kitchen, then crept back to the guest room and locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely text my friend Mark, who's been my go-to since high school. I kept my message vague, just, "Hey man, you up?" I knew if I tried to explain everything right then, I'd either break down or lose my nerve. All night, I replayed Sarah's words on a loop. I barely slept. When the girls finally left, I listened for her footsteps. Would she come find me? Would she act normal? She didn't. She went straight to bed, left her phone face down on the nightstand, and mumbled good night like nothing happened. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if anything I believed about my marriage was real. The next morning, Sarah was all smiles and, "Hey babe, want pancakes?" Like she hadn't detonated my entire world 12 hours earlier. I watched her move around our kitchen, humming to herself, and it hit me. I had no idea who she was anymore. Every detail about the night before gnawed at me, the casual way she lied, the thrill in her voice. And the worst part? I still had no proof, just my memory of what I heard. That Sunday was pure torture. I played along, forcing myself to act like nothing was wrong, even though every smile felt like a lie. I kept waiting for Sarah to slip up, to say something that would give her away, but she was all sweetness. Checking her phone with her back to me, making jokes about our plans for the week, even leaning in for a kiss that I could barely return. Inside, I was spiraling. I spent the day noticing every detail, how she lingered on her texts, how she disappeared to run errands, and come back smelling like someone else's cologne. Or maybe that was my mind playing tricks on me. Was it always like this, and I just never noticed? Was I too trusting, too blind? I considered confronting her right then, but I didn't. I needed more than words overheard through a wall. I needed the truth, cold, undeniable truth. So I started watching, quietly. I told Mark everything, finally, and he was furious on my behalf, but told me to be smart, get proof. Don't just nuke your marriage over a maybe. That night, when Sarah went to shower, I stared at her phone on the nightstand. My hand shook as I reached for it, but it was locked. New code, not the one we always shared. It's weird how your world can shrink down to a single goal. Get the truth. That's what the next few days felt like, me quietly collecting clues, trying to keep my face blank even when I wanted to scream. I started paying attention to things I'd always ignored. Sarah's new phone habits, the way she started locking the bathroom door with her phone inside, the sudden flurry of work dinners that she never had before. Mark was my lifeline through all this. He kept telling me to keep calm, not to let on that I suspected anything. But every time Sarah left for yoga or got a late-night call from Jenna, I felt the anger simmering under my skin. I started checking her location, thank you, Google, and more than once, it didn't line up with where she said she'd be. She came home one night, cheeks flushed, hair messier than usual, and when I asked how class was, she hesitated just a second too long. I found myself rehearsing conversations in my head, planning how I'd confront her, how I'd ask about the guy. But I kept freezing up. What if I was wrong? What if I blew everything up over a misunderstanding? I was stuck, paralyzed between rage and doubt, every day losing a little more trust in the person I loved most. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Sarah said she was going to a late yoga class with Rachel. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice, but that night, something felt off. She left in a rush, barely making eye contact, perfume a little heavier than usual. I waited until she was gone, then texted Rachel, nothing direct, just, hey, if you guys want to grab takeout after yoga, let me know. I'll order. 5 minutes later, yoga? I'm home with the flu. Sarah's not here. Sorry. My chest tightened. I stared at that text, rereading it, as my hands went numb. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but instead I sat down and tried to breathe. This was it. The first undeniable crack in her story. I couldn't ignore it, couldn't chalk it up to paranoia anymore. When Sarah came home, her hair was damp from a shower, smelling like some unfamiliar shampoo. She seemed startled to see me up so late. Didn't yoga run long? I asked. She blinked, then smiled too quickly. Yeah, Rachel wanted to talk after class. I knew she was lying. For the first time, I saw through her act, and I started to feel something new burning underneath the pain. Resolve. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Sarah said she was going to a late yoga class with Rachel. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice, but that night, something felt off. She left in a rush, barely making eye contact, perfume a little heavier than usual. I waited until she was gone, then texted Rachel. Nothing direct, just, hey, if you guys want to grab takeout after yoga, let me know, I'll order. 5 minutes later, yoga? I'm home with the flu. Sarah's not here, sorry. My chest tightened. I stared at that text, rereading it, as my hands went numb. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but instead I sat down and tried to breathe. This was it. The first undeniable crack in her story. I couldn't ignore it, couldn't chalk it up to paranoia anymore. When Sarah came home, her hair was damp from a shower, smelling like some unfamiliar shampoo. She seemed startled to see me up so late. Didn't yoga run long? I asked. She blinked, then smiled too quickly. Yeah, Rachel wanted to talk after class. I knew she was lying. For the first time, I saw through her act, and I started to feel something new burning underneath the pain. Resolve. Having real proof changed everything. For the first time in weeks, I stopped second-guessing myself. The facts were there, black and white, staring me down on my phone screen. But the more evidence I gathered, the heavier the reality felt. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This was my wife, Sarah, building a second life right under my nose. I watched her more closely than ever. Every word she said, every place she claimed to be, I matched against what I knew. Once, I almost slipped. She mentioned meeting Maya for drinks, but I'd already seen a Venmo payment labeled, "Thanks for last night, winky face," to someone named Nick. I didn't know who Nick was, but I could guess. The urge to confront her on the spot was almost overwhelming, but I bit my tongue. Mark thought I should confront Sarah alone, get it all on the table. But I kept thinking about that night with her friends, how she laughed about keeping me in the dark. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. I wanted the truth out there, not just for me, but for everyone who'd played along. I started planning. Sarah's next girls' night was coming up. I decided that's when I'd do it. I'd expose everything in front of the same people who'd enabled her lies. Girls' night came faster than I expected. I barely slept the night before, rehearsing every scenario in my head. Her crying, her screaming, her denying it all while her friends looked away. My stomach twisted with nerves, but underneath it all, I felt something steadier. I was done being the fool. Sarah was in high spirits, even playful as she set out wine and snacks for Rachel, Maya, and Jenna. The scene looked so normal, just four friends laughing in our living room, but it felt like a stage set for a play I was about to ruin. I waited until they were all a few glasses in, their voices loud and careless. I walked in, trying to act casual, heart pounding so hard I could barely hear myself speak. "Hey, can I borrow Sarah for a sec?" All eyes turned to me surprised. Sarah's smile froze. What's up, babe?" The word babe sounded brittle. I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots. "You want to explain these?" I asked, voice shaking but loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went dead silent. Rachel's jaw dropped. Maya's wineglass slipped and nearly shattered. Sarah went pale, then red, then back to pale. Caught, exposed, with no way to wriggle out. The silence after I showed the screenshots was suffocating. Sarah's hands trembled as she snatched my phone, scrolling through the receipts, the messages, all the evidence I'd gathered. "What is this? Are you spying on me now?" she snapped, her voice brittle. But her bravado crumbled under the weight of the truth. Rachel looked horrified. "Sarah, is this real?" Maya stared at her glass, suddenly unable to look at anyone. Jenna just shook her head, whispering, "I can't believe this." I spoke, voice cracking but determined. "I heard you. That night. You laughed about how easy it was to lie to me, about how I'd never find out." My chest felt hollow, but I pressed on. "You could have told me. You could have asked for a divorce. Instead, you chose this." Sarah's face twisted between rage and shame. "You don't know what it's like. You don't know how trapped I felt." The room shifted, her friends recoiling, stunned by what they'd become accomplices to, even unwittingly. I walked out, leaving the room thick with tension, tears, and the ugly echo of betrayal finally dragged into the light. The silence after I showed the screenshots was suffocating. Sarah's hands trembled as she snatched my phone, scrolling through the receipts, the messages, all the evidence I'd gathered. "What is this? Are you spying on me now?" she snapped, her voice brittle. But her bravado crumbled under the weight of the truth. Rachel looked horrified. "Sarah, is this real?" Maya stared at her glass, suddenly unable to look at anyone. Jenna just shook her head, whispering, "I can't believe this." I spoke, voice cracking but determined. "I heard you. That night. You laughed about how easy it was to lie to me, about how I'd never find out." My chest felt hollow, but I pressed on. "You could have told me. You could have asked for a divorce. Instead, you chose this." Sarah's face twisted between rage and shame. "You don't know what it's like. You don't know how trapped I felt." The room shifted, her friends recoiling, stunned by what they'd become accomplices to, even unwittingly. I walked out, leaving the room thick with tension, tears, and the ugly echo of betrayal finally dragged into the light. After I walked out, I sat on the front steps, staring at the dark street, trying to catch my breath. I could hear muffled voices inside, Sarah sobbing, Rachel trying to comfort her, Jenna swearing under her breath. A part of me wanted to go back in, to demand more answers, to scream about everything I'd lost. But mostly, I just felt empty. Eventually, Rachel came outside, eyes red. "I'm so sorry, man. We had no idea it went this far." "If I'd known." She trailed off, guilt written all over her face. I appreciated the gesture, but it didn't change anything. "Just look out for her, okay?" I managed. "And don't let her keep lying to you too." Inside, Sarah was a wreck. Crying, pacing, trying to explain, trying to blame me, then herself, then the universe. I couldn't even look at her. "I need space," I said quietly. "You can stay here tonight, but I'm leaving in the morning." The house felt haunted by everything unspoken. My phone buzzed. "Mark, checking in." I texted back a simple, "It's done." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of relief. The truth was out. But what came next? I had no idea. The next morning, I packed a bag in silence. Sarah barely slept. Her face was puffy, eyes rimmed red, mascara smudged. She tried to talk, to beg, to bargain, but I couldn't do it. Not then. I needed air, distance, anything but the suffocating sense of betrayal that clung to every room in our house. I crashed on Mark's couch for a few days. He listened, sometimes in silence, sometimes ranting on my behalf. I called my mom, finally. That was brutal. She cried, too, and offered all the usual lines. You're strong. You'll get through this. You didn't deserve it. I needed to hear them, even if I didn't believe them yet. Word spread fast. Jenna and Maya reached out, both apologetic, both insisting they never knew how deep it went. Some friends took sides. A few texted Sarah, offering sympathy. Others messaged me, saying they always had doubts. I realized how many people in our lives had been tiptoeing around the cracks, just like me. Sarah sent long emails, some angry, some desperate. She wanted to talk like adults. Maybe in time, but not now. I was still spinning, lost somewhere between heartbreak and relief. For the first time, I started thinking about what my life might look like without her. The first week away from Sarah felt like living in someone else's life. I kept expecting her texts, her voice, her presence in the kitchen. Instead, it was just me and my thoughts, painful, bitter, sometimes strangely hopeful. Mark dragged me out for beers, kept the conversation light when I needed it, serious when I didn't. I realized how lucky I was to have someone in my corner. But the nights were hardest. I replayed everything, our wedding, old vacations, even stupid arguments about laundry. I mourned the life I thought I had. I let myself be angry, then sad, then numb. My therapist, yes, I called one, finally, told me, what you're feeling is grief. Not just for your marriage, but for your sense of self. That hit harder than I expected. Sarah kept reaching out, sometimes apologizing, sometimes angry that I'd embarrassed her in front of her friends. She begged me not to throw everything away over one mistake. I almost responded, almost agreed to meet, but I stopped myself. I'd lost enough of myself trying to hold together something that wasn't real. Every day, the pain dulled a bit. I started to see the outlines of a life beyond the wreckage, one where I could trust myself again. About a month after everything blew up, Sarah finally stopped texting. I'd made it clear. I needed space, I needed time, and above all, I needed honesty, something our marriage hadn't had in a long time. The day her last message came through, a simple, I'm sorry, goodbye, I felt lighter. Sad, yes, but also free in a way I hadn't realized I was missing. I met with a lawyer, started the divorce paperwork. It was brutal, but there was a strange empowerment in reclaiming my life, one document at a time. Friends who'd faded away came back, asking how I was holding up, and I started going out more, dinners, hikes, things I'd neglected in the fog of suspicion and heartbreak. One night, Mark and I sat on his porch, laughing about some dumb college story, and I realized I was actually laughing. Not faking it, not forcing it for someone else's sake. For the first time, I felt like myself again. Changed, scarred, but still standing. I thought about what I'd say to Sarah if I saw her again. Not anger, just truth. I deserve better. And somehow, I finally believed it. It's been a few months now. Sometimes the pain hits out of nowhere. A song, a smell, the echo of a laugh in an empty house. But more often, it's a quiet sort of relief. I'm learning to enjoy my own company again. I'm closer with Mark than ever. I've reconnected with family. I'm rediscovering parts of myself I let slide to keep the peace, to pretend things were fine when they weren't. Looking back, I realized the hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself, but letting go of who I thought we were. The denial, the desperate hope that maybe I was wrong, that it could go back to normal. If you're reading this and you're in that place, lost, doubting your gut, feeling like you're crazy, you're not alone. Listen to yourself. Protect your peace. It's not weakness to demand respect. It's not selfish to walk away from someone who keeps hurting you. If there's any silver lining, it's that I know myself better now. I know what I will and won't tolerate, what trust is supposed to feel like, and how strong I can be when the bottom drops out. I hope you find that strength, too. Thanks for reading, Reddit.